Let's face it, hiring help is not easy these days. Let XenTegra Staffing help you find the right person for the right job. Head over to XenTegra.com/XenTegra Staffing to find out more and let us staff your people needs. Welcome to another Citrix session with your host, Andy Whiteside and Bill Sutton, your source for all things Citrix.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of the Citrix session. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I have with me Bill Sutton, the Director of Services at XenTegra. Bill, another week, right? Another interesting week for sure.
Very interesting week. Excuse me. We're all kind of sequestered at home, or many of us are sequestered at home or in our offices. So it's the new normal for now.
So, Bill, I know you're busy, but other than being busy, how different is your normal workflow? I mean, are you still going to the same desk and doing the same things you do every day?
The only change to my normal workflow is that I have two little monkeys that run around the house while I'm trying to work, which is not normal. So my two small children.
Well, I guess that does definitely change the equation. I had a customer last week. I was trying to help them with their business continuity ideas, and they just flat out stopped in the middle of it and said, well, okay, what do you do? And I was like, well, we do it every day. There is no continuity. We don't have to worry about it. We work from clouds. We work from apps as a service, desktops as a service, not because we're trying to plan for business continuity, but because we're trying to get our jobs done the most efficiently and hire people in places where we want to hire the right people, and it doesn't have to be tied to a desk here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And I had, I guess it was 2 days ago when all this really started, Monday. So, 2 days ago, when the kids were all home and they started working remotely. I typically work off my laptop. Sometimes I'm in the virtual desktop. It kind of depends on what I'm doing. But on Monday, there was a pretty significant slowdown in internet. And so I jumped in the virtual desktop and worked the rest of the day in that. And it was a great experience. So because the bandwidth for ICA is not nearly what it needs to be for full web access to Salesforce and Podio and things like that. So giving us that ability really has its advantages, even in low bandwidth situations.
Yeah, for sure. Hey guys, we have Bill. We have with us. We have Eric Kenney and Arvind S. We'll just leave it at S. We'll let him pronounce the last name here in a minute. But these guys, Eric, with help from Arvind, they wrote a blog around app protection. So app protection is now GA for on-prem Citrix virtual app and desktop. So not just the service, but for the on-prem version. And that's what the blog really covers here. But we're going to probably get into both. Eric, how's it going?
It is going wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Andy. It's great to be here.
So, Eric, according to your title on LinkedIn, you're a product marketing, channel marketing, demand generation guy for Citrix.
Correct. Yeah, I've been I am on the workspace product marketing team with a focus on most of our security products, so including things like app protection, and have been with Citrix for nearly 7 years now. So, it's been a great run, and I'm happy to be here.
So I also noticed on your LinkedIn profile, you're a University of Florida guy. I have a quick kind of one-off question for you. Do you guys have the numbers on how many Miami grads, how many University of Florida grads, how many Florida State grads, South Florida grads? Do you guys have any kind of breakdown on how the numbers actually look at corporate Citrix?
I don't know the exact breakdown, but I think it's a fair bet that if you talk to anyone at our Fort Lauderdale headquarters, there is a 99% chance that somebody went to one of those three schools at some point in their life. So yes, it's a good observation for sure.
I like going to the office in Raleigh because I'm an NC State guy, and there's a good amount of NC State folks in the Raleigh office.
Sure, it's right there, right across the street.
Yeah, right down the street. Hey, Arvind, according to LinkedIn, your title is Senior Product Manager at Citrix. I always love talking to the product managers. What's your history and background working for Citrix?
Hi. Thanks for having me in this webinar. I currently work as a Senior Product Manager in Citrix. I lead the desktop workspace app and also the product manager for app protection, given that is a technology that we added into the desktop version of Workspace app. And been with Citrix for like 3.5 years now. It's going good.
That's good. That's good. How's everything in India right now?
Not bad. We're into the third week of Corona panic. I think it should settle down probably in 2-3 weeks, I hope.
And I don't mean to hijack the call on this topic, but are the concept of flattening the curve? Is that what everybody's talking about in India, or is it a concept that just plow through it and let's come out the other side?
I mean, they think the crucial 2 weeks are the upcoming 2 weeks, and they're trying to see if they could quarantine everyone and cut down on the spread. And thereby they see that this containment in the next 2 weeks would help solve or reduce the panic.
Yeah. One of the interesting things I find about this scenario is everybody has something to talk to everybody about all of a sudden, right? Everybody has one thing in common in the world today, and that's this whole coronavirus thing, which, is definitely a very bad thing. It's, if I'm being honest, it's probably a really good thing for people who work in the Citrix world of selling remote computing and allowing people to work and enabling people to work. But at the same time, it's also, in a roundabout, weird kind of way, brings the world together around a certain topic that we're all trying to defeat, no matter what side of politics you're on or whatever. We're all, trying to tackle this, and we have something in common. It's kind of good to see the human spirit come out in that. But let's jump into the article here. I'm very curious about this. I had my first Citrix experience in the late 90s, and it was a security play for me at that point in time, no doubt. It was also an efficiencies and operations conversation. But the ability to handle the security piece was almost 100% perfect. The downside was the inability to prevent keyloggers and screen captures and things like that. But I think, Eric, that's what you guys are covering here. You want to jump into the first paragraph or two and try to kind of put a synopsis on what you're covering there?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we've seen is really an uptick in BYOD programs. So I think companies of any size, really any industry, are really looking to leverage BYOD programs as part of their overall IT strategy. We all know about the benefits of having a BYOD program, so we won't cover that specifically. But it does introduce risk, because in a lot of instances, people that are using their own personal devices to just go through their normal daily lives, they're not taking the same care of those devices as you would a managed device. So maybe they're visiting websites that they shouldn't visit and are exposing themselves to malware that might get on that device.
Hey, Eric, can I tell a quick story about that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
We had an employee one time that was traveling, and they would stay in a friend of theirs' apartment when they would travel. And at one point, I stumbled into the idea that they were using a Windows Vista desktop on some random person's computer in their apartment. And their response to me was, "Don't worry about it. It's Windows Vista. Nobody cares about that anymore." It hadn't been patched in 6 years. But that was kind of the excuse as to why to use it. It baffles me that people think that way. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's a great example, and I think the other example too is social media sites, right? So I think if you're on a managed device, we see a lot of companies that are have URL filtering and are blocking access to specific sites like social media sites, just because they are a really efficient platform to distribute malware, and people are obviously going to those social media sites on their personal devices, and again might be having those devices infected with malware, and now they're going and accessing those corporate resources that you're providing to them through those devices. I think the other use case that we see a lot too is companies with a lot of gig workers or contractors. In those cases, the strategy is for those workers to use their personal devices to get the work done. So it really introduces a new kind of risk to the company that they have to think about and have to protect against, because in a lot of cases, the malware that might be infecting the user's device is this keylogging or screenshot malware. So in the case of the keylogging malware, when it gets on the device, every keystroke that you enter into the device is actually captured by the attacker. So usernames and passwords, what you're typing in emails, any data that you might be entering into a spreadsheet, all that information is sent to the attacker, which they now have and can use for whatever reason they want to. So if you think about something like all the usernames and passwords that you're logging into the various SaaS services that you have, they now have the credentials for all those services, and they can log in anytime they want to and get access to any critical information that your company might have within those applications. When we see industries that are subject to compliance and regulatory concerns like healthcare, like finance, this is a big issue for them, because if somebody has those credentials to get into those applications and access something like social security numbers or credit card numbers or personal health information, it represents a real financial risk for those organizations, because if that data has been breached, they are now out of compliance with HIPAA or FINRA, whatever the case may be, whatever their industry compliance regulation might be. They're going to be on the wrong side of it and be subject to a pretty significant fine.
So Eric, I have a question for Bill real quick. Well, first of all, I'll make this comment. It only takes one point of entry, right? All you need is that one point of entry, and there's potentially thousands, if not millions, let's say thousands for every user, potentially hundreds at the very least. Hey, Bill, what percentage of people, when they're with their personal computer, not to mention corporate, but their personal computer, what percentage do you think actually takes away admin rights from their standard user by default?
Oh, nobody.
Well, one, I do. My whole family. Nobody gets admin rights. I don't even give myself admin rights. But that's a big problem, right? You want to explain why that's a problem?
Well, sure. Yeah, you can install software. You can malware can infiltrate through executables that you can run. Whereas when you're not an admin, generally speaking, you're not going to be able to install software, which, of course, as we know, will bring the malware with it. I will say this: we got my son a gaming computer for Christmas last year. I made him a user and made myself an admin, and he logs in as a user for that very reason.
Yeah. Yeah, my son comes to me once a month, and I have to log in as the admin to update his drivers and stuff.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would add to what Eric was saying is with respect to the data exfiltration in a healthcare environment, I also look at it. I've had this come up before in my days as a consultant. Customers, think about a finance department in a medium-sized or large business where they're logging into 401k portals, they're logging into the banks, the various banks and investment firms that they do business with. They're logging into payroll systems. Most of those are now SaaS-based, so you would hope that customers would have, federated authentication and perhaps multi-factor, but a lot of them, particularly the smaller businesses, probably don't. And having something like this app protection in place would help prevent those credentials from being exfiltrated and leveraged by a bad actor to access financials or transfer money or get personal information and so forth. So it really goes across all organizations when you start thinking about it from the standpoint of HR and finance in a regular company.
No, it certainly does. And as Eric's pointing out, it bridges personal and corporate.
Yes.
Well, let's be honest, people use their corporate devices to do personal work as well. One thing that kind of helps here a ton is multi-factor, like you mentioned. But at the same time, some of the multi-factor stuff is just something very basic, like, where's your high school? What city was your high school in? And, keylogger's going to get that. And so it kind of defeats that purpose.
Exactly.
Eric, you want to take us into this paragraph right before the demo where it starts talking about what app protection does? And let me just ask real quick, app protection is specifically for delivering virtual apps and desktops, whether through the service or through the traditional on-prem solution. And can it protect, installed local apps as well?
So before we get into that, I'm going to answer that question, but I just did want to point out too that it's also going to protect against this screen capture malware as well. So it's not just keyloggers, it's screen capture as well. So on the screen capture side, what's going to happen is that the malware will periodically just take a screenshot of what is on your screen and send up to a server that they have somewhere that only they can access. So also presents a really significant risk because, again, if you're somebody in payroll or HR and you've got people's personal information on the screen, it's going to take that information and send it up to a place where they can get it, which obviously creates that data exfiltration risk as well. So to get into your question, so right now the app protection is only available for on-prem Citrix virtual apps and desktops. So it's not available for any of the services at the moment. This is something that is on the roadmap and something that we're working very diligently on and hope to have an update for everyone very soon, where we will provide this for any SaaS and web apps that you might be delivering and are being accessed through Workspace, but then also the Citrix virtual apps and desktop service as well.
Eric, that's really great to hear because, I met with a bank last week, and we were talking old school Citrix, and we both agreed that Citrix has always been a security play. But his comment was, "Hey, what about the SaaS stuff? I wish somebody would solve that." And I'm sitting here going, "Well, they are. I mean, that's what's coming. That's what we're doing already with Citrix. That's where Citrix is going next." It's great to hear, this type of solution coming to the SaaS and web app story of Citrix.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we know, that's just the way the world is moving. So yes, there's still a ton of companies that have virtual apps and desktops deployment. We're seeing more of it as, we move to more remote workforce in response to what's happening today. But the fact is that SaaS and web apps are not going anywhere. And in reality, it really shouldn't matter what the end user is accessing, whether it's a virtual app, whether it's a SaaS app, whether it's a web app, it doesn't matter. We need to protect it all. We need to protect all the resources that the end users need to do their jobs effectively.
So, Eric, you want to dive in a little bit into how it works, and then I guess maybe you'll hand it off to Arvind at that point.
Yeah, sure. So at a high level, I think it's important for everyone to understand that for this to be effective, what's going to happen is, and I'm not trying to steal Arvind's thunder here, but the admin will go and set their policies in Studio, and what will happen on the end user front is that when an end user accesses those virtual apps and desktops, the end users, if they're on a Windows machine, they need to use Citrix Workspace app 1912 or later. On the Mac side, it needs to be 2001 or later. And then when they do that, when they do something like log into Workspace, it will recognize that the app protection policies have been set. And when they enter their username and password or any other keystrokes into the device, they come back as scrambled. So what is returned to the hacker is just undecipherable text. And then on the screenshot side, instead of returning what is actually on the screen, it's just going to return a black picture. So again, it'll just be useless information for the hacker. So that is how we're protecting against that type of malware.
Eric, it's Citrix, right? So it sends the keystrokes, and then it returns the information that the keystrokes have been sent. But what it sends back is garbage. But
correct.
What goes into the Citrix system is usable. So it goes one direction good, the other direction comes back as intentional garbage, right?
Fully function, to the end user, there's no difference. They don't even know that this is happening, right? So, like you said, the one-way traffic is just fine, normal course of business. Everything is going to be working as it normally would. But to your point, yes, the hacker is just going to receive undecipherable text or just pictures of a blank screen. So that it's not going to be anything of any use to them.
Yeah, great. So how do we want to proceed from here? Do we want to dive into the demo and kind of talk through it a little bit? How do we want to do this?
I think that's great. I mean, the videos don't work well for this audio portion, for these audio podcasts, but I think we can just kind of play it in Arvind, and you can just kind of talk about what's happening on the screen and the benefits that it's going to provide to all of our customers.
And guys, anybody listening to this podcast can go look at the blog, right? It's around your blog, blogs.citrix.com. It's easy to find. Just search for app protection. But Arvind, I'm gonna hit play here, and you can tell us what's going on.
Sure. So, like in this specific demo, right? So let's talk about virtual apps and desktops. So consider this as a BYOD or even an enterprise managed desktop, but has administrator rights. And this user, by mistake, has installed the malware, which is a simple keylogger that is running on the bottom of the screen. And he's using a native notepad, and you can see that the keystrokes are plain keystrokes are getting into the keylogger, and he's also able to take screenshots. But let's do the same thing through Workspace app, through a virtual app or desktop that is delivered through Citrix. The user will do the same thing by logging into Workspace app. And then once he gets into virtual app and desktop, and let's say he opens an application like Microsoft Word, which is published through Citrix as a virtual Windows app. And as you can see here, the user, as he types, you can see in the keylogger, all of the keystrokes are scrambled. So the user is not able to, or the malware is not able to capture the keystrokes of the user, and hence the sensitive data is protected.
Wow, that's great.
So let's say he tries to take a screenshot. right, of a virtual application that is delivered to Citrix, here in this case, the screen just grays out. And all that the user would get or the malware would get is a gray screen. Not just for a screenshot tool, but even for a screen recording tool, this is the case. So once a screen is recorded and you try to play it, all that the malware or the hacker would see is a gray screen. And this applies to not just like a screenshot or a screen recording tool, right? Let's say you're trying to share your screen through collaboration tool like GoToMeeting or Skype or Microsoft Teams. When you try to share the screen of a protected app, in this case, which is the Microsoft Word, all that the user would see on the other end is just a gray screen.
No, that's great. That really is good. That's something that obviously we've wanted for a long time. And I've got another question around security after this, but that's pretty much wraps it up, right, Eric? I mean, it's that simple from an end user perspective. Solves the challenge we've had since the first day I saw Citrix from a security perspective. Hey, Bill, any thoughts on what you saw there?
No, it's a great security feature that they've included here, and I guess the question is this is obviously for applications that are hosted on a Citrix infrastructure, right, Arvind?
Yeah, anything that is delivered through the Citrix infrastructure. So,
and you said policy oriented
virtual app and desktop on-prem.
Yeah, so you said basically set it in the policy, and then you have to have a subscription somewhere, right?
That's right. There are two new policies that are on the Studio, which can be configured per delivery group. So you could protect only the sensitive applications, whereas you can allow the users to take screenshots of non-sensitive applications.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like it's coming for the services. It's currently available in virtual app and desktop, the on-prem solution. Is there a certain edition that it comes with, guys, or is it in all the editions?
No, so for virtual for those on-prem virtual apps and desktops, it's available as an add-on that the customers are going to have to buy. So if you do have an on-prem deployment, reach out to XenTegra and talk about how you get app protection for yourself. The great news, and something that we actually did not cover in the blog, is that when we release for cloud services, any customer that has Premium or Premium Plus will be auto-entitled to app protection at no cost. So that will be available for them to protect their SaaS and web apps at release. And then shortly thereafter, we'll have the app protection available for CVAD service as well. So we'll get to that place where everybody that has those Premium and Premium Plus subscriptions will be able to protect everything in the cloud. And as part of that, where we're going to auto-entitle everyone, if the customer has hybrid rights, we will give them a license file that they will be able to apply to their on-prem deployment as well. So while they're making that transition from on-prem to the cloud, they'll be able to protect everything under the sun for themselves, just because we want to get as much value as possible from app protection.
Yeah, that's great. Guys, this really is a great addition to the Citrix security story, without a doubt. Arvind, we've kind of dominated the conversation. Is there anything specific you want to bring up before we start to come to the end of the podcast?
Yeah, just one additional information I wanted to add. So this is a client-side technology. So the keystrokes are encrypted on the client side itself, so it doesn't reach the server and come back. So the hackers will not be able to trace the network and get these keystrokes when it goes from the workspace up to the server, because it's all encrypted on the client side itself.
No, that's great. Hey, Eric, anything else you want to cover? I'm going to throw you guys a curveball here in a second, but do you have anything else regarding this blog you want to cover?
I don't think so. This is, we announced this at Synergy last year, and we've, all been put a lot of work into getting this out to the customer base. So we're really excited to see it come to fruition, and we've seen a lot of demand and a lot of customers, coming up and getting this feature. So really excited about to see what comes in the future with it.
Hey, Bill, anything else?
Yeah, I'm curious, Arvind, what is the policy? It's in the standard policy engine within Virtual Apps and Desktops Studio. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
You'll have two new policies, one for keylogger prevention and screen capture protection. You could enable either of them through the policy. So there's no learning curve or training required for the administrators. It's just like any other policy.
Just turn it on. Right.
You guys, how does this impact the screen capture session recording piece of Citrix? Will that still work with this turned on?
Yeah, that will still work. That is not a problem.
Okay, great. All right, Eric, you ready for the curveball?
Let's do it.
So I was with the IT director last week, and he specifically talked about this, right? He and I talked about this, and then he threw me a curveball, which is DLP, data loss prevention. We have analytics, we have security as part of Workspace where we can identify that stuff. We've had for decades now the ability to disable local file access or downloading of files through ICA or printing through ICA. Now we have watermarking and technologies like this too. What are we doing outside? What do you guys have insight into what Citrix is doing for SaaS apps as it relates to data loss prevention beyond just the recognition of it through the analytics piece?
Yeah, so I think the best place to start for that is our access control service. So, with the access control service, one thing that we've seen a lot of interest in is the web isolation that comes with Secure Browser. So one very specific use case that I think a lot of customers aren't necessarily thinking about, but is coming back to bite them, is when you have something like a trusted application, but something malicious lives within that application. So for example, if you have a file sharing tool that isn't Citrix Content Collaboration, and you're working on a document with somebody, and as a comment or just as a piece of information within that document, they put in a link to a website that actually has malware on it, right? So as a user, I'm allowed through my browser to go to that SaaS application because the IT admin has said that this is a trusted app. So I'm able to log in, and as I'm reviewing the document, I click on that link, and now I go to this site that has infected my device with malware, right? So with Citrix, what you're able to do is actually create a dynamic isolated browser, which is hosted in the cloud by Citrix. So if I click on that link, it's going to recognize that it might be a gray site or a black site, can block access to it, or even launch that isolated browser in Citrix Cloud. So if the device or if the site is trying to deliver malware to the device, doesn't matter because it's never going to hit the network. It's never going to hit the device. It's all just on that isolated browser in Citrix Cloud. So I think that there's more coming, but I think that is the first and very specific use case that people should be thinking about and how Citrix can help.
So Eric, let me state it the way I think it is, and you tell me where I'm wrong here. But in my world of Citrix, I think I have three options, right? I have published the browser from my Citrix environment like I have for decades now. Yeah. I have the secure browser service, which I think is what you were just talking about. And doesn't the Workspace app come with its own version of Chromium, like a sandboxed browser now as well? Am I making that up, or is that real?
Nope, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and the number one published application in all of Citrix is a browser. So, using the secure browser service is really makes things a lot more efficient for our users because browsers can take up a lot of bandwidth, especially if, people are doing things like going to YouTube. So, having the secure browser service that is hosted in Citrix Cloud is also, it gives you the security benefits, but also just makes your Citrix farm a lot more efficient because you don't have that those really bandwidth heavy sites that are running across your network as well.
Yeah. Hey, Arvind, any comments on this topic before we adjourn this second topic I brought into the mix here?
No comments on that, Andy. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Bill, I'd be remiss if I didn't give you a chance. I know you probably have some thoughts around it at least.
Well, yeah, I mean the Chromium browser embedded in the Workspace app, that given the ability to leverage the watermark and the security features of that, really goes a long way towards securing the like Eric said, those SaaS and web-based apps, and then of course the secure browser service where we can redirect or even disable the access to social media sites and things that might introduce malware. I know from the consulting side, like Eric said, a lot of customers publish browsers. A lot of users that get Windows 10 VDI, the first thing they open is a browser, and those things are memory hogs. A lot of them are. And being able to offload some of that, especially for non-essential information, but even for some essential information, really goes a long way in reducing the density required for that infrastructure.
That's another good way to look at it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for all the insight. It's always very much appreciated. Eric, if you have future blogs that you proactively want us to cover as a podcast, just ping me and let us know, Bill and myself.
Thank you so much, Andy. It was great to be here. Appreciate it.
And Arvind, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. I know it's what time is it where you're at? It's pretty late, right?
It's 7 p.m. here.
Okay. So not too bad. I don't feel as bad as I thought I was going to feel. I thought you were going to tell me.
Not bad at all. Yeah, no problem.
All right. I have to get back to work. We've got a ton of stuff to do. I'm glad I make us, right, Bill? I make us carve out an hour every week to do this. I feel so much better once we do it. It's kind of like getting a workout in. It's just something we have to keep doing no matter how busy we are. So we're going to keep doing it. And I see a lot of people doing podcasts and they do one or two and then they get busy and then they stop. We're not going to stop. We love doing this.
Absolutely. We do.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, have a good day.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Good day.
Thanks for listening to the Citrix Session with your hosts, Andy Whiteside and Bill Sutton. A special thanks to our guests. Podcast produced by Pete Downing. Head over to XenTegra.com/podcast to listen to all podcasts in this series.